Why today's youth have a hard time choosing a person. In a time when we have seemingly endless options, why is it so difficult for us to make the right choice? Lena, 23 years old, asks herself this question again and again. She swipes her phone screen through hundreds of profiles, faces, and potential partners. But the more she scrolls, the emptier she feels. Is it the paradox of today's generation? Too much freedom, but not enough connection? The variety of options, blessing or curse. We live in an era of constant connectivity, where everything and everyone is just a click away. There used to be a clear limit on the people you interacted with. The world was smaller, the options more limited, and the decisions seemed simpler. Today, however, the digital world offers us seemingly unlimited options. There are dating apps, social media, video chats, and yet many people feel lonelier than ever. The freedom we have wanted for so long suddenly feels like a cage made up of too many possibilities. An important aspect of this development is the paradoxical nature of decisions. Research shows that more options doesn't necessarily lead to greater satisfaction. In fact, the sheer number of choices can often lead to decision-making anxiety, uncertainty, and indecision. Lena's situation is not an isolated case. Many young people report similar experiences. Scrolling through dating apps creates the feeling that the perfect person is just a swipe away. But the more options there are, the harder it becomes to commit to someone. There's always the possibility that an even better option is waiting. The psychology behind indecision. Why do today's youth find it harder to focus on one person? A look at psychology helps answer this question. One of the main reasons is the so-called fear of missing out. This constant fear of missing out on a better opportunity drives many young people to remain in a state of constant searching. Instead of engaging in the moment and building a real connection with someone, you always look forward to what could come next. How can you commit to one person when there's always the possibility that someone better is just a click away? Expectations for relationships have also changed. In the past, relationships were often a matter of necessity. They were looking for stability, togetherness, and a long-term perspective. Today, the ideal of self-realization is often in the foreground. You want to find the perfect partner who not only offers an emotional connection, but is also a perfect fit for you intellectually, socially, and physically. However, these high expectations often lead to disappointment because no one is perfect. The role of technology, curse, or blessing. Technology has undoubtedly revolutionized our lives. It has opened up new ways for us to connect with others, maintain relationships, and find potential partners. But like every coin, the digital revolution also has its downside. Platforms like Instagram, Tinder, and TikTok have changed the concept of relationships. Where it used to be about getting to know someone in the real world and letting a relationship grow organically, today the quick visual assessment often dominates. You can decide within seconds whether someone is interesting or not. This superficial selection process devalues the deeper, more meaningful aspects of a relationship. In a world where everything appears more beautiful and exciting through filters, it is difficult to accept reality as it is. The constant availability of new profiles also leads to a phenomenon known as serial monogamy. Instead of truly committing to a relationship and nurturing it through difficulties, people often choose the next option as soon as things get complicated in the current relationship. The social comparison trap. Perfect relationships as an illusion. Social media has also changed the way we perceive relationships. Platforms like Instagram are full of images of seemingly perfect couples, beaming faces, exotic vacations, dreamy weddings. This portrayal creates a distorted impression of what a relationship should be. For many young people, this makes it difficult to accept the reality of a relationship that also brings with it challenges, conflicts, and compromises. Instead, they chase the image of an idealized relationship that is, in
Yes.
reality, almost impossible to achieve. In a world of perfect Instagram feeds, the everyday life of a real relationship can suddenly seem disappointing. The concept of attachment, past versus present. Throughout human history, the concept of attachment has always been a central part of the social structure. From marriage as an economic institution in times gone by, to the modern romantic relationship as an expression of personal freedom, the understanding of attachment has changed dramatically. What was once shaped by social norms and constraints has now become an individual expression of self-determination. But with this change come new challenges that reach deep into the human psyche. The bond in the past, security, stability, and tradition. In earlier times, commitment was much more than just a matter of romantic love. It was a question of survival, social status, and economic security. Marriage, as the most common form of commitment, rarely had anything to do with romantic feelings. Rather, it was an agreement shaped by traditions and family ties that formed the foundation for the formation of families and social networks. In the past, commitment was not a matter of the heart, but a pact set in stone. Not out of passion, but out of duty. Marriage was often an arrangement negotiated by family heads. The decision about who to share one's life with was rarely in the hands of the people concerned. Individual wishes and desires played a subordinate role. It was much more important to forge alliances, merge lands, and maintain social status. Love in these relationships often only developed over time, if at all. Romance was a luxury that few could afford. Life back then was characterized by uncertainty. Wars, disease, and economic crises made stability a top priority. A binding partnership was the answer to these uncertainties. It created a structure in which people could rely on each other, both emotionally and materially. Marriage was a pact that brought two families together, and the expectations were clear. Constancy, loyalty, and perseverance, regardless of life's ups and downs. The role of religion and tradition in attachment. Another defining factor in the past was the role of religion. Many cultures viewed marriage as a divine bond that was inviolable. Divorce was a taboo, and that to understand why today's youth find it harder to commit to one person, it is also important to look at the changing understanding of commitment. In previous generations, the concept of attachment was often closely linked to social and cultural norms. You married young, started a family, and built a life together. These decisions were often influenced by societal, religious, or family expectations. Today, young people have more freedom than ever before. They are free to choose their partners and make their life decisions independent of traditional constraints. But with this freedom comes greater responsibility. There are no longer any set guidelines, and the pressure to make the right decision is heavy. The influence of pop culture in media on modern relationships. Pop culture and media also have a significant influence on young people's relationship behavior. Films, series, and music often convey an idealized image of love and romance. Especially in romantic comedies or love songs, the idea that true love is light and carefree is sold. These narratives can lead young people to have unrealistic expectations for their relationships. Pop culture sells us the fairy tale of perfect love, but the reality is often different. Love is work, compromise, and sometimes pain. The longing for individuality and freedom. However, this longing for freedom is often in conflict with the deep human need for connection and belonging. Many young people feel torn between the desire for closeness and the fear of giving up their independence. Many young people today are faced with an inner conflict that goes deeper than the usual relationship issues. They long for closeness and real connection, but at the same time, they fear giving up their independence. It's a dilemma that shapes not only their relationships, but often their identities as well. At a time when personal freedom and self-realization are considered the highest ideals, it seems harder than ever to find the balance between the desire for closeness and the protection of one's own autonomy. The desire for closeness is deeply anchored in our nature. Humans are social creatures who grow and thrive in connection with others. But what happens when this closeness is perceived as a threat to one's own independence? Many young people feel torn between a longing for emotional intimacy and a fear of losing themselves too much in a relationship. I want to get involved with someone, but I'm afraid that I'll lose my own freedom, many people say. These words reflect a widespread dichotomy. They reveal a concern that attachment and independence cannot coexist, that you either have to stay true to yourself or be absorbed in the relationship. But this thought not only creates insecurity, but can also lead to emotional isolation. How to open up to someone without risking losing yourself. The modern pursuit of self-realization has taught us that we don't need anyone to be happy, that true happiness lies within ourselves. But a new pressure seems to have arisen in this philosophy. The pressure to always remain free, independent, and self-determined. Relationships that were once taken for granted are now often seen as an obstacle, something that prevents us from pursuing our goals or forging our own path. Many young people fear that closeness automatically equates to dependence. This fear can become so strong that they prefer to pursue superficial connections rather than truly commit to someone. "I don't want any commitments" is a phrase you often hear, but what lies behind this statement is often the fear of giving up control. Control over one's life, one's dreams, and one's self. In a world where independence is considered the ultimate virtue, longing for closeness sometimes feels like a betrayal of oneself. But this is exactly where the paradox lies. While the freedom of not having to commit yourself seems tempting, it often leaves a feeling of emptiness. Because deep within us, everyone carries the need for real connection. For someone who understands us, supports us, and makes us feel like we are not alone. The art is to allow closeness without giving up your own identity. In truth, choosing closeness doesn't have to mean losing your freedom. It's about finding a path that enables both connection and independence. Relationships can be strong even when both partners maintain their individual space. It's the balance that counts, the ability to allow closeness without sacrificing your own freedom. Perhaps true freedom lies not in protecting yourself from attachment, but in recognizing that closeness and independence can go hand in hand. Click like and